Yo, 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 people and patrons of the night, it is your boy, the Horrorlander. Scares are meant to be shared by everybody, alright? That includes your loved ones, your friends, yourself, and sometimes the best recommendations for horror stories that you can get in terms of what you should be reading is by those who you trust, those who you look up to, those who you find as close friends, and people that you can honestly hold conversations with a lot involving the genre. And that's why specifically today, I'm going to be looking at one of my two good friends' favorite horror stories that they have recommended to me. And I'm going to be talking about how I felt about it, the synopsis, the stories, and overall recommending them to you guys because, yeah, spoiler alert, I did enjoy them. They are good ones. And of course, these stories come from two people who you guys probably know about if you've been tuning into the channel for a while. But if you don't, they are some of my two inspirations on how I started this YouTube channel. Two good reviewer friends I have and good buds. These guys are Monster Blood and Goosebumps Completionist, or more appropriately for this video, his second channel, Horror FFA. Monster Blood basically focuses on what I kind of do, where he reviews also adult horror, young adult horror, short stories, comics, movies, all things all over the place, and of course kids horror like Goosebumps and that sort of stuff. So he's sort of reviewing all aspects of horror, and although he's on a break, he has plenty of content on his channel, so you guys should go check out his stuff. Go subscribe to him, go like his videos, comment on his videos, and of course, if you guys show him enough support, he might come out of retirement since he is taking a temporary break. Ain't that right, Monster Blood? On the other hand, Horror FFA is an encyclopedia when it comes to horror media knowledge. He finds so many hidden gems, so much cool stuff. If you like kids horror and specifically Goosebumps, you can go to Goosebumps Completionist. But if you like adult horror, comics, obscure movies, go check out Horror FFA. So with him as well, go subscribe to his channel, go like his videos, comment down below. Show love to these guys. They are underrated and underappreciated. And we got to show more love to these horror booktubers. No bias aside. So let's get into the relatively quick reviews for both of these short stories, and after that you guys can go check them out and pick them up, give them a read, and hopefully you have a good time with them just as I did. The first story is going to be Monster Blood's recommendation, and this is from a cult classic, iconic and very famous author, and this short story is probably well known by a lot of you in the horror community, but for those who are not, and for the purpose of the introduction, we're going to be looking at The Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe. This story basically opens up with the main character who's being driven into madness by some unknown supernatural kind of occult phenomenon, and he knows that people are going to think that he's crazy, they're not going to believe anything that he has to say, and yet despite that, he wants to give the details behind his tale, and that's how this very weird story starts to unfold. Essentially, this man has been very docile his entire life. He's been an animal lover and grew up with taking care of a bunch of different animals and pets with him and his wife. And eventually he ends up getting this black cat, which his wife thinks to be kind of superstitious, like a bad omen, but he really loves it. He's really affectionate towards it until his behavior starts to change. He starts drinking, he starts becoming a lot more violent and aggressive, and it eventually starts building up to the point that one night when his cat is basically showing him affection after he's been out drinking for the night, he ends up actually, and disclaimer alert, starts stabbing out one of its eyes and leaves it brutally injured. Yeah, there's quite a bit of animal abuse in this story, so just a forewarning. And for the days to come, his negative emotions keep on building up. He becomes more resentful and sort of treats the cat as this wretched plague in his life, and it builds up to the point that he eventually hangs the cat by some trees by his house in the backyard. And when he does that, he obviously now feels relieved that this thing is out of his life. However, after he commits this heinous act, his house mysteriously then burns down. His curtains and bed ends up on fire. His wife manages to run out and he ends up getting out, although all of his material wealth is now destroyed. And when he eventually goes back to the gravesite of the house to kind of investigate the fire and ashes, he sees the body of the cat basically dumped in the middle of the living room with the noose around it. So that is very ominous to him, and he suspects that maybe a neighbor or somebody threw the cat inside of the house through a window. And eventually, a few days later, this new cat ends up appearing in his life, one that is very affectionate, always kind of clinging to him. But this cat looks similar to the old one that he killed, except it has a streak of white fur coming down its chest. However, things start getting very occult and weird as the cat starts transforming slowly day by day, and it ends up losing one of its eyes in its socket, which eerily kind of matches the old cat, and then that streak of white fur is noticed to go away, and it eventually keeps on driving this guy more and more crazy until something happens. And then by the end of the story, there is some comeuppance done in a pretty clever way that sort of wraps the story around. And while there is still like a little bit of mystery, I was quite satisfied with how it turned out. Again, this is a very creepy one. It has an ominous atmosphere to it. You start getting very kind of freaked out when you see that this new cat comes into the equation, and the fact that it's slowly transforming day by day into the appearance of the old one. It kind of makes you expect that something's going to go very wrong, but then it kind of subverts your expectations because you more so kind of see that this guy is being driven into madness. He keeps on committing bad acts, and maybe not, it eventually catches up to him. I'll give this one an 8 out of 10. I could definitely see like a modernized version of this story being adapted into maybe Tales from the Dark Side, a couple decades back, or even Tales from the Crypt. It feels like it would fit nicely in there if you manage to adjust it in a more modern setting. So yeah, very happy I read that one. Thanks Monster Blood for that recommendation. And I can tell why it's a classic story. It definitely has a very eerie vibe to it. And I get the suspicion that maybe some future stories by other authors were inspired by it. I got Cry of the Cat vibes from R.L. Stine, so I'm not sure if he read that story before, but if he did, I can see where maybe some inspiration was drawn. The next story is by my good friend Horror FFA, and this one is a very wicked, creepy, and gnarly tale by Joe R. Lansdale, who's one of his favorite authors at the moment. He's really loving his work from the conversations I've had with him and some of the reviews that I've seen. And the same way that I treat Tim Curran is how this guy treats Joe R. Lansdale. So I was excited to read his stuff. I know that Joe R. Lansdale kind of makes more pulpy and weird stories. I did read one story by him before called The Second Floor of the Christmas Hotel, which was a very good supernatural ghost story done in a unique and horrific way. So I was excited to read this one. So without further ado, let's get into his recommendation, which is called The Folding Man. The Folding Man opens up with a group of friends who are basically speeding down a highway in their whip. They are basically partying on a Halloween night, dressed up, and the guy in the back named Jim is basically piss drunk. He's singing out the Star Spangled Banner and slurring on his words. Meanwhile, his two friends are sober up front, but they're all energized with the Halloween night, ready to party once they get back to their crib. And as they're driving on the highway, they see a very, very odd sight. There is a group of nuns who are basically speeding down the highway in this all black kind of old vintage car. It looks like something out of like an EC Comics thing, and you can't even really tell the model of it, but you can see the nuns, through the streetlights of their car and the moonlight inside of this whip. And these nuns look pretty gnarly. They look kind of hardcore. They look kind of creepy, almost like witches. And there's something strangely odd about them because it's noticed that their outfits are not even black and white. They're actually purple and white. And they seem to be glaring at these group of friends or kind of being wary of them. So of course, like the idiots they are, one of the friends ends up basically mooning the window by where the nuns are pulling up, and then the guy ends up rolling down the window, and he ends up getting his bare ass outside the window, basically shown to the nuns, and they end up responding weird. They actually flick up the middle finger at him, and then they basically look like they're about to kill him, and that's when these guys think that maybe these guys aren't actually nuns, maybe they're like dressed up as them. And eventually, they start suspecting that they might get in trouble because maybe the nuns will phone the law. So they end up speeding, full down the highway, basically trying to get away from this black car of nuns until they see that the nuns are also speeding up and trying to catch up to them. And they are basically moving at fast speeds, even though these guys are hurling down the road at over 100, miles per hour or whatever. These nuns are keeping up with them. When one of the friends basically ends up deciding that he wants to taunt one of the nuns, he then sees him roll down the window, and the nun has these long, jagged, stained teeth and these sunken eyes, and she basically takes a 2x4 and slams it down on the guy's head with incredible force. And it's noted that with her sleeves rolled down, her elbows are actually bent at a different angle. Her elbows are actually jointed on the opposite side. So this guy gets hit over the head, his head splits open, he's bleeding, and he basically dies on the spot. And his other friend basically pulls him in and sees this grisly sight. That's when eventually the nuns start running down this car, and these guys end up getting into a really bad accident down a ditch. They end up getting injured, and the drunk guy in the back basically sobers up as he sees that the nuns are getting out of their car, and they are long, they got disjointed limbs, their jaws are somehow getting longer and bigger, their teeth longer, their eyes, more kind of creepy and ominous looking. And then the nuns start pulling some weird stuff out of the back of the trunk, which looks like a folded up lawn chair, until you find out that it is a being. A long, lanky, strange being that ends up contorting, and you hear mechanical gears kind of riveting. And as it starts basically unfolding itself, you see that they start taking clay from the earth and putting it on this kind of folded entity, and it makes it kind of fill up with skin. It gets these kind of spongy, slug-like lips, this long tongue, and its eyes start burning bright red. And they take a black bird, open up the cage where its torso is at, and put it inside. And this thing starts getting animated, and maybe planning to do some horrible, horrible things to this group of unfortunate souls. You see how that one plays out, and I don't want to give more than that, but let me just say this story gets pretty bloody as they try running and getting away from this thing. You find out the weird mechanics of it. There is some brutal, crazy action, and again, some violent gore, and also some more animal abuse, unfortunately, as some other unfortunate souls end up getting targeted by this thing. And you find out the urban legend behind this black car, maybe some freaky, eldritch, weird being that is beyond space and time that is somehow involved with this whole situation. And yeah, this was an absolutely insane story. I would probably give it an 8.5 out of 10. It was very good. Again, if you like gore, this story's got some brutal gore in action. If you like high-paced, hype kind of intense stories, you'll get it out of this one. And actually, the nuns in this story were pretty damn creepy. The way that they're described is so ominous and strange. It almost feels like something that Clive Barker would write. And I had a fun time with this one. So yeah, I'm glad that Horror FFA recommended this one. You can check out The Folding Man by Joe R. Lansdale from his collection called Bleeding Shadows, which I have throughout this video section. And yeah, got nothing more to say than that. If you like some good creature feature or some weirder horror, something that will kind of remain in your mind and, kind of be very memorable and iconic, this is the story for that. So go check it out. And that's all I got for today. I'm glad that you guys had recommended these two stories to me, Monster Blood and Horror FFA. I had a good time with them. And this was all just one elaborate scheme for me to get you guys to read Tim Curran. Yeah, that's right. You guys think the nuns in this story were a creepy cult? No, man. I am the Folding Man. I am the leader of the Tim Curran cult. I am that ominous black cat. That's why I'm rocking the black right now. You guys are going to read that motherfucker at this point because now you owe me one. See, this is how you do sales and marketing, all right? So don't be scared if you see me kind of driving down the highway in a black ominous vehicle with a black cat by my side with a folded up man in the back who's tossing copies of Alien Horrors out the window to your local suburb. And if you hear, Yeah, A-Track remix playing out the window, just know that you go outside, you pick up a copy of Alien Horrors, and that's all that she wrote. So, that's all I got for today. If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, comment down below, and also go show support to these two. And yeah, have a blessed day. Deuces.
Arrivederci.